talking about advantages and disadvantages of credit. And we're going to talk about some laws that are involved in credit, laws that protect. Okay, so let's look at our first thing. First, let's look at some advantages of credit, okay? Okay, advantages of credit. First big advantage that we already talked about was you can buy large items sooner and pay over time, right? Second advantage, you can reduce the need to carry cash and or checks. A little safer, you know, people are less likely because they'll rob you for cash. They'll still take credit cards, but they're less likely if you have no cash. There's nothing quick benefit for them. Okay. All right. Another benefit is that it consolidates, and I'll explain this in a second. No, consolidates payments for multiple purchases to one payment. Okay. So if you think about it, right? If you think about it, you are paying for multiple things at once when you pay off your credit card bill, right? Instead of having to make a payment to Macy's and make a payment to Sears and make a payment to here and make a payment to there, you use the card, you buy it on the card, and you make one payment to pay it off. Okay, that's what we mean by consolidate the payments. The last thing that credit does is it helps build credit history. So you can borrow at lower interest rates and larger dollar amounts later. Okay. Little caveat, as long as you pay on time. Okay, it's not just, yay, I got a credit card and now I can have more. Okay, you gotta make sure you're making the payments on time to get the bonus. Okay. All right, so far so good? Questions about that piece yet? We are going to be talking about some disadvantages also. Now, do you notice that I have indents and stuff? Yours should do that too, because these are topics and subtopics. Some of you have been lazy, and if you notice, your points aren't as good. This is easy stuff. Okay, back up, because we have a new heading. That's Shift Tab, by the way. I think Ethan was the one that told me that one. I go way back. Okay, so now, disadvantages of credit. Okay, disadvantages of credit. Credit is costly because you pay extra for the interest. We talked about that yesterday. That when you're using your credit, the company that loans you the money charges you an interest rate, charges you money to use theirs. It's not free. The only one that's potentially free was the non-installment one, the same as cash one, as long as you paid it off by the deadline, right? Okay. So when you're using credit, instead of saving up the money and using cash, or saving up the money and using a check, you pay extra by having that privilege of using someone else's money, okay? That's interest. Second really big one, it's easier to buy on credit, but then have trouble paying it off. Which causes credit problems in the future. And can really damage your financial plan. All right. So it might seem easy, but it's easy to fall in the trap of, oh, I can use credit. Oh, I can use credit. Oh, I can use credit. And then, oh, credit, how am I going to pay that back? And then you fall behind on the payments and it causes problems. Why do I see some people missing from their screens? That's craziness. Okay, so far. Okay, another one. By not paying back the money on time, you can lose possession of the asset. That's called repossession. Okay. You borrowed money to buy that car. You didn't pay the payments for the car. They come with a tow truck. They grab the car. They take it. It's theirs legally until you've paid off the loan in full. They legally still own it. Same for the house. Same for everything. Okay, so all the big ticket stuff. So you have to be super careful that you do what you need to do for those big ticket items, or they can come take them back and you still owe them the money. That's not a good plan, okay? All right. Another thing that can happen, not paying on time can lead to bankruptcy. Which stays on your credit report and damages your credit rating for 7 to 10 years. Even if life circumstances happen. You went and you purchased a home, and then your husband lost his job and you can't make the payments on your own. So you have to start negotiating and working things out. But sometimes you just can't make it work on one income even though you try. So you have to file bankruptcy. Okay. For things like credit cards, they write those off. For things like cars, they take them away. For things like houses, they'll let you negotiate with the lender, and they'll want to be paid on time, or they're going to have you sell the house and move away. Okay. But the next year, your husband gets a great job. Everything's beautiful. Your job goes well. Everything goes well. You now have really well money. Things have stabilized. It was a circumstance. However, that bankruptcy is on your credit rating and will damage it for 7 to 10 years. So then you have to keep repeating over and over the situation to various lenders. They're not going to give you the best rating anymore. They might give you something in between because they realize it's a life situation, like a lot of stuff that's going on right now with COVID and people losing their houses and stuff. They're going to be more flexible and lenient as we come out of this for those families that it wasn't their fault. They weren't being irresponsible with their money. Okay. But some stuff sticks for a long time, so you have to be careful. And it is far better when you're young to get in the habit of carrying as little debt as you can. So you buy on the credit card and maybe you pay it off in 2 or 3 payments. Don't let it sit. One, it saves you money because you're not paying as much interest, but 2, it keeps you stable so that if something happens and you get that bumpy road, you're not totally messed over. Okay. Okay. Credit cards are a special danger because it is super easy to overbuy and not have enough to pay it back. Okay. Credit cards is an extra bonus. They're also the other reason. Okay. Also, credit cards have really high interest rates they charge. Okay, really high interest rates they charge. And their minimum payment usually barely covers their interest. That's supposed to be covers. I left off the C. Sorry. Covers their interest for the month. Interest charge for the month. So you are barely paying off the thing you bought. Sometimes you never do. You can pay the minimum for years and years and years and never make a dent in the credit card, which is why it's super important to budget it. We talked about budgets way back. Budget it, plan, this is how much I'm going to spend for groceries. It's okay to use the credit card to pay for it, but make sure when your money comes in that you pay off or you pay a big, huge chunk So there's only a little balance from month to month. You don't make it sit there for a long period of time because it's lots of money and interest. And you don't want to be paying that. Why give to somebody else money that you could be using for something else? Okay, think of that. Interest that you pay to these companies is an opportunity cost. It's now money you don't have for something else. And we talked about opportunity cost a while back too. Okay. All right, so that's advantages and disadvantages of credit cards. So I'm going to shift tab twice because we're going back. There are, however, some consumer laws and rights for credit. Okay. Because understandably, when this whole idea of credit, which is actually reasonably new, the whole idea of credit came about, there were less than honest bankers that wanted to take advantage of the situation. And they weren't necessarily upfront and truthful about everything. They told just enough, right? So lying by omission. They didn't actually tell a lie to the person. They just didn't tell them everything that was the truth. So they had to go ahead and they created these consumer rights for credit to protect the average person so they weren't cheated. Okay, the first one is Equal Credit Opportunity Act. That's our first one. Okay, what this does is it credit cannot be denied because of race, gender, age, national origin, religion, or marital status. Marital status. Okay. They can't say, no, you can't have the credit card because you're Jewish. They can't say, no, you can't have the credit card because you're a woman. They can't say, no, you can't have the credit card because you're Hispanic. They can't do any of that stuff anymore. Now, back when it got started, like I said, banks were regional, little banks started out some of their stuff, and we all know that there are places in our country still, unfortunately, that have less than tolerant points of view, right? And they had to protect the people. When the, women didn't necessarily get to vote right away. So there were some of the bankers that say, well, oh, you're a homemaker. You can't have a credit card. You're a woman. Okay. So they had all these things. Remember, these were laws put in place a long time ago to protect because, sometimes not everybody thinks as openly and honestly as they should. Okay. Now, with this, okay, it requires creditors to notify applicants in writing within 30 days the reason they were denied the credit. They have to come out and say why. Okay. They have to tell you why. So they will send so if you fill out an application for a Discover card and you mail it in, right? Or you do it online or whatever. A lot of the places you find out right away, you're declined, but then they still have to mail you the letter that gives the full reason why. Okay. They might give you a shortened version if you're doing it online, but they still have to give you it in writing, mailed to you with more details. Okay, so that's that one. Backing up. I think it's only one. So the next law that they put in place for credit cards, super long law, ready? Credit card accountability, responsibility, and disclosure act. They do sometimes just call this the Credit Card Act. Okay, the credit and then correction. This is all capitals because they credit card, because card accountability, responsibility, disclosure, those all make the word card. The Credit Card Act. So it's kind of funny that they need the ones in between make us spell out the word card. Okay. This particular act ensures consumers who try to get credit are treated fairly and have complete access to rates, fees, and credit terms. Okay, rates, fees, and credit terms. So if you've ever gotten a credit card, that usually when it first comes in the mail, I'm going to put a page break in right here. Comes in the mail, right? It has a little pamphlet that's with it, right? That little pamphlet is the Credit Card Act deal, okay? That little pamphlet is the Credit Card Act deal. Or when you get a bank account, same thing, they have a little pamphlet that comes with it, and that's job is to tell you all the terms and the rates and all that stuff. No, well, I should say, credit rejection sometimes counts against your credit history, but credit rating, not credit history, but it depends on how many. Like, so you do not want to sit there and go on out and fill out 10 applications for all these credit cards. Because they see that you're filling out applications for all these credit cards. Because they're checking your reports and they see who's doing hard inquiries versus soft inquiries. They get to see it. Okay, it's all part of that credit bureau thing. And they'll start to get suspicious why you're wanting so much credit. Okay, so when you're starting out, you want to start out with some small. They do have student credit cards that give a little better interest rate, a little better terms because they realize you're a student. Okay. But again, big thing, when you pay for it on credit card, make sure you're planning that you're paying it off within a couple of months. Don't let it sit there for long terms. Okay. So they can see each other and then they'll get uncomfortable about the fact that you filled out all of these credit card applications. What the heck's going on? Do they really have the income to cover payments on all these and things like that in terms of credit rating? It doesn't make it affect your credit history. Credit history is about your payments and are you on time and are you responsible? Credit rating is about how many inquiries and things like that. I do highly recommend that once you do get your first credit card, that you track it like using Credit Karma or something like that. Okay. Track your credit score, track your things like that. Okay. 10 beyond. Okay, so another thing that this particular act does is it limits fee amounts and types of fees on credit cards. Because there used to be a fee for a statement, a fee for being late, and a fee for a cashback, and all these different fees. And it was kind of nickel and diming people, and it would cost them a lot of money that was unnecessary. The bank was just being greedy. All right. One last act, couple more bullet points, and then we'll talk about the assignment for today. Okay. All right. So the last one is called the Financial Reform Act, also known as Dodd-Frank Wall Street Act. Oh, Wall Street. Oh, much more. Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Ooh, that's enough. Okay. Go with the Financial Reform Act. It's easier to say. Okay. This one prevents deceptive practices when giving credit. Okay. Remember I told you that they didn't necessarily give the whole story to the consumer? This is what that's about. That they wouldn't tell them that it was 29.8% interest. They would just go ahead and say, hey, this is an easy way to buy, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They wouldn't tell them all the stuff. Okay. They limit now these introductory fee, interest rates. There's a limit to those now. It used to be where they would go, oh, we'll give you a great introductory rate of 10%, but it would last for 1 month. Okay, so they have to be more transparent, and they can't go ahead and do these little sneaky underhanded things to try and get more money away from them. Okay, now the last thing that this act did when they put it in place is it created the Consumer, I can spell Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. This is always one of those words that looks weird. They abbreviate that CFPB to enforce consumer financial laws. So they didn't just put the laws in place and say, okay, bank, be a good boy. They actually created an entity that monitors the banks, monitors the credit card companies, fines them, takes away rating from them, does this negative stuff to them when they do the wrong thing. Okay. They created an agency responsible to track and make sure that the banks and the credit card companies are doing right and treating their consumers truthful and honest and stuff. Okay, questions? Any last questions? Okay, so what